Howard Beck is joining us. All right, so let's just jump right into this. Let me ask you about the Nets first, Howard. Kyrie Irving was pretty effective last night. In fact, more than pretty effective. So was Kevin Durant in that win over Cleveland. So a lot of people are going to see that and think the Nets are contenders, if not the favorites in the East. Would you buy into that, or would you be concerned about the fact that this team has got a range of being really, really good, but at times really, really bad?
Yeah, I mean, listen, as you know, I'm in Brooklyn. This team is in my backyard. I've seen them a lot, and I've followed their whole drama throughout the season, and they've been one of the more drama-filled teams. Not quite at Laker level, but, still a lot of drama. I've been a pronounced Nets skeptic, which is not the same thing as saying I'm either a Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving skeptic. Obviously, their talent speaks for itself, and Kevin Durant is incredible, possibly maybe quite likely the best basketball player on earth right now, and a blast to watch. And it's just great to see him doing it at this level again after all he's been through. But they don't play a lot of defense as a team. The drop-off after those two is fairly substantial. And, somewhere in the wings is Ben Simmons. I'm sure we'll get to him. But, Ben Simmons is they wanted a big three here, and Harden was supposed to be the third part of that big three. Didn't work out so well. He's gone. Simmons is in, but Simmons hasn't played a minute with them, and they might try to throw him into a playoff series at some point pretty soon, perhaps. I just think that, just look at last night's game on its own. Kyrie was incredible. Didn't miss his first 12, 13 shots in a row, whatever it was. Durant was fantastic. Durant's, flinging assists too, and he's scoring. And yet they're still fighting off a Cleveland Cavaliers team that, solid season, fine, they're good. They've got one good offensive player in Darius Garland, but not a lot else to speak for. And the Nets had to really hold them off. And this happens a lot with this team. The next team they're going to face, the Boston Celtics, in a best-of-7 series, and with the Celtics having home court advantage, obviously far more loaded, far more talented, far more seasoned, too. That's a team that's been in a lot of playoff battles, whereas the Cavaliers playing this play-in last night don't really have a lot to fall back on. This is their first breakthrough year since LeBron left. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the Nets to be able to take out a high-quality team, a team that was, dominant for the last 3 months in the Celtics. And I know Robert Williams is gone, and that's going to have an impact on their defense. But they got Marcus Smart, who might be Defensive Player of the Year. They've got Jaylen Brown. They've got offensive weapons. They're going to make life a lot harder on the Nets than what we saw, say, last night.
Right. Howard Beck is joining us. Howard, you said we'll probably get to Ben Simmons. So before we leave that topic, why don't we go there first? You've got, as part of what you've referred to as the volatility index, you've described the return of arrival, actually, of Ben Simmons. I mean, how weird is that to try to work in a piece as big as Simmons on the fly in the playoffs, and how do you see that going?
I've said this many times. I think I've written this a couple of times, too. If we as sports fans and sports media are going to talk all the time about the importance of chemistry and continuity and camaraderie and all these other wonderful C words, cohesion, then we can't just throw it out. Connectivity, there's another good C word. Steve Nash uses that one a lot. If we're going to value all these things and talk about them, and coaches and players talk about them, of course, ad nauseum, too, then we can't just pretend it doesn't matter when a team is adding a superstar or at least an all-star in Ben Simmons, who hasn't played for them at all. And look, Ben Simmons hasn't played since last June, period, and we know it didn't end on a very nice note. Two, he's never played with the Nets. He's never practiced fully with the Nets. And, he's not just some shooter that you bring in like, oh, okay, he's a role guy. We'll just throw him the ball in the corner and he'll make a shot every so often. No, Ben Simmons is an all-star and a guy who you want to have a significant role, certainly defensively, and also as a playmaker who's going to have the ball in his hands. If chemistry and all these things matter, then we have to say that this is a team that will not have chemistry with Ben Simmons the first day they throw him out there in the middle of a playoff series. And so I don't get too caught up in sports cliches. I have tested this out with various assistant coaches and scouts and others I've talked to in the last few weeks, asking them about this, and they've said, no, you're right. But by the way, they also add, you have to put him out there. Like when he's ready, you have to play him. You are obligated to play him. He can help you. You need him. But yes, there is a potential downside and an extra dose of volatility, of another variable, because he has not played with these guys before. They don't have a feel for each other in terms of defensive rotations. They don't have a feel for each other in terms of where guys like the ball and how to play off of each other. It will absolutely be an adjustment, and I don't think you have that much room for error, again, when you're playing a team like the Boston Celtics.
I like this point. A couple of more C words then to describe that, right? Combustibility, confusion. It might not work out. We're talking to Howard Beck. Howard, so what about this? The expectation was, when we were talking about the Nets, we were talking about Durant and Irving and James Harden getting ready for the playoffs with the Nets. What do you make of Harden and how he's fit into the Philadelphia lineup?
I'm not sure if it's about fit or if it's about fitness or if it's about chemistry there, if it's about just James Harden maybe having finally lost a step or something. He's been really up and down, kind of maddening. But James Harden in the last few years has become kind of a maddening player, right? And listen, if you're a Rockets fan, there were a lot of maddening times even at his peak because postseason often did not bring out the best in him in key moments. So my honest answer, Jim, I don't know what to make of the Sixers right now, and I don't know what to make of James Harden right now. But I will say, and this is not a unique opinion across NBA media or within the NBA itself, there's a ton on the line right now for that team. And the team they're facing in the first round, the Raptors, is really good. Like, they don't have a Joel Embiid, they don't have a James Harden, but they've got a bunch of guys who can all do a lot of stuff with the ball in their hands. They're all very interchangeable. They can all pass and shoot and make plays and defend across multiple positions. It's a unique team and a really talented team. There's no guarantee the Sixers are getting out of the first round, and if they don't, given the investment they've made in James Harden and the investment that they have yet to make in terms of a contract extension this summer that everybody expects, there's a lot riding on that first-round series for them.
No doubt. Howard Beck joining me for a few more moments. Howard, you mentioned the Lakers, so let me ask you, when you see how they handled the firing of Frank Vogel and then how the front office and their star players handled their end-of-season meetings with the media, what kind of thoughts do you have?
Just that, that's a team that has always had drama. You and I both know this. We followed the franchise closely for a lot of years. And sometimes it's good drama, sometimes it's bad drama, sometimes it's a mix of everything all at once. I mean, that the bloodletting the other day, from the firing of Vogel to Westbrook's comments to everything else, none of these things are a good sign, clearly. And for a team that was in the finals and winning a championship, just a year and a half or so ago, it's really striking just how far they've fallen. It's not just what happened in the standings. And yes, okay, of course, there were some injury issues, but there are chemistry problems, there's roster construction problems, and salary cap problems. And I think, there's got to be some internal drama there, too, just because of some of the decisions they've made have failed so spectacularly. You've got to think that there's at least a little self-reflection going on about that. And then the handling of the Frank Vogel thing was just a disgrace, obviously. Leaking that out before you've actually talked to him about it. And that has absolutely been noticed around the league. Like, this is not just media people, doing our usual, that's gonna send the wrong message. No, like, people are talking about this around the league. They're talking about how Frank Vogel was handled, and how badly that was handled. And look, does it play a role in whether somebody else wants to take the job? As they say, there's only 30 of these jobs, right? They pay really well. You get to coach LeBron and live in LA. Obviously, they'll probably get somebody pretty good. So it's not that it will have an ultimate impact of denying them a good coach, but are a lot of good coaches taking notice of that and saying, I would think twice about it, or maybe telling their friends, think twice about it? Yeah, that absolutely has an impact.
Seems to me it absolutely would, Howard. And one more thought about the Lakers. The thing that really bothers me, that I find offensive, is I really think that this was an unbelievably disappointing year. Like, I don't ever remember a worse year for the Lakers, yet the Lakers seem to think that, well, it's not really that at all. We were just hurt. Or LeBron himself is saying it was not a failure. He said, quote, not at all a failure because we came to work every single day and we put our hard hats on. You've watched this team for a long, long time, as you just mentioned. Can you remember a bigger disappointment than this year's Lakers?
I don't think I can. And I've said, I think the Westbrook trade, and I know there are other factors that went into all their failures this season, but that trade has to go down as the most catastrophic in franchise history when you consider the context. The players they gave up, the position to put them in payroll-wise, which is what caused them to let Alex Caruso walk, the actual effects on the court, the bad chemistry, the fact that you have LeBron James still playing at an MVP level, but with, the clock ticking, and you wasted a season of his career with a chance to still, LeBron James can still lead a team to championships. He could lead that team to championships if he had the right supporting cast, and they completely screwed it up. So, yes, a catastrophic trade, a catastrophic season for them. The recriminations should go deeper. I'll just leave it at that, but it doesn't seem like they're coming to grips with that. That was the other stunning thing. You asked Jim about what I noticed about all the exit interviews with them. A profound lack of self-reflection and self-awareness.
Right.
Nobody took responsibility. Not Westbrook, not LeBron, not Rob Pelinka for sure, nor anyone else. There was the kind of perfunctory, it wasn't the greatest, yes, we can all do better. That's not the same thing as accountability or self-reflection or telling your fan base what they need to hear, which is that you recognize how badly it went and that there's a responsibility there, and that you should fix it. But they just stuck to generalities and pat answers, and I just thought that in itself is alarming. You hope, again, that they're being at least a little bit more self-aware and reflective behind closed doors.
Alarming is one way to put it. I would agree with you. I find it offensive. To me, it's a gigantic middle finger to the entire world. Are you that arrogant? Are you that out of touch? Or do you think we're that dumb? Nobody in that building is owning anything at all. So one last thought. Where does that leave Russell Westbrook? He seemed genuinely confused that Frank Vogel did not like him. He didn't understand that at all for some reason. What do you make of where he is in his career, and then what does his future look like before you leave us?
Quick plug. My buddy Kyle Goon, who writes for the LA newspaper group there, Orange County Register and the LA Daily News and the rest of it, had a great column about Westbrook's lack of self-awareness on this. People should go read that. But, where this leaves Westbrook, again, the league pays attention, Jim, and they are all seeing those same quotes and hearing those same quotes. And if you're considering whether to absorb his $47 million contract in a trade, and whether you think, it's only 1 year, we'll move some other contracts, we'll get him, and we'll just see how it goes. You're thinking twice and three times about it, because Westbrook has shown he has zero self-awareness and zero remorse for the way he's played. And the fact that he can't come to grips with the fact that he's not the same player he was anymore, and that if he's in a different context, meaning next to LeBron James, you have to play differently. You have to evolve, and he has never been willing to evolve. And, my co-host on the Crossover Pod, Chris Mannix of SI, said this yesterday on our pod, and I thought on one level it sounds so hyperbolic, and it's not. Is it possible that Westbrook has played his last game in the NBA? And the reason it's not necessarily hyperbolic or some crazy hot take is you look across the league, it's hard to see a team that actually would need him right now or want him right now, unless they're just kind of in desperate straits and figure out, what the heck, might as well try something. But I don't see a team out there where he fits, and I certainly don't think the Lakers can bring him back.
He is the excellent senior NBA writer at Sports Illustrated, Sirius XM NBA analyst. The pod that he just mentioned is a great pod. He's the co-host of the Crossover NBA show with Chris Mannix and Howard Beck. He is a good friend of the program. Howard, great job. Did not mean to keep you that long. Sorry about that, but the content was so good I couldn't let you go. Thank you very much, Howard. Great to have you on.
No, Roman, it's my pleasure. Go Gauchos, go Aggies.
Go Gauchos, go Aggies. My man's married to a Gaucho. I love it.